Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Cheryl Yuen. Here's a look at our top stories tonight. Police arrest the former husband of a murdered model as they continue searching for missing body parts. 8 protesters are jailed for up to 57 months for rioting. And the city's health minister fears an increase in smoking when the mask mandate ends. Police have arrested the former husband of model Abby Choi, whose dismembered body was found in a Tai Po house yesterday. The man was detained as officers combed through a cemetery in Chang Kwan-o for missing body parts. Macy Mock reports.
Model Abby Choi's former husband was spotted at Tong Chung Police Station this afternoon. Officers escorted Alex Kwong, who was ordered to help their investigation. Kwong was arrested at around 1 p.m. at a pier in Tongchong after police received a tip-off that he was trying to flee the city on a speedboat. Superintendent Alan Chong alleged that Kwong, his father, and brother were suspected of murdering the 28-year-old model, whose dismembered body was found in a Tai Po village. Speaking during a search for missing body parts at the Chang Kwan-o Chinese Permanent Cemetery, Chong said Kwong's mother knew about the killing, and her involvement is being investigated. All 4 have been detained. About 100 officers were deployed at the cemetery to search for Choi's head and other body parts, but police said there was no major discovery. Search dogs were on hand as divers combed a pool inside the cemetery. The search is continuing. Choi's death shook the city, and her Instagram page drew thousands of sympathetic comments. Kwong was sent to Queen Elizabeth Hospital this evening after claiming he was unwell. Police said money was the motive for the murder. Sources said Choi and the Kwong family had a dispute over selling a jointly owned apartment on Kaduri Avenue. Choi reportedly spent millions of dollars to buy the luxury apartment when she was married to Kwong. Her former husband and his family continued to live in the flat after Choi and Kwong separated. Macy Mock, HKIBC.
Police believe that the murder was well planned as the village house in Tai Po, where body parts were found, was rented only a few weeks ago. A chainsaw and meat grinder were found in a ground floor flat. Janice Lowe reports.
Police launched an investigation on Thursday after Abby Choi's family reported that she had not returned home since Tuesday. Her former parents-in-law and her former brother-in-law were arrested in the early hours of Friday and remain in custody. Yesterday evening, officers armed with a search warrant broke into a 3-story house in Longmei Village in Tai Po and were shocked with what they saw inside. In a ground floor flat, they found chopped up human flesh and 2 pots of soup that are believed to contain human tissue.
The body part that we found were inside the refrigerator. There were 2 legs belong to a female. We are still looking for the head, and there are also other body parts that are missing. For example, the torso area, the hand, those are still missing.
Police took away a chainsaw and meat grinder, as well as a long raincoat, gloves, and face shield. Choi's identity and credit cards were also found. Police are still investigating to see if she had been killed in the apartment. Superintendent Chung believed that the crime was well planned because the victim's former father-in-law had rented the apartment only a few weeks ago. There was barely any furniture in the house, and the 2 bedrooms had no beds. Chung said the windows were covered with canvas. He urged people with any information to contact police on 3661-8281 or 9702-9757. Janice Lowe, HKIBC.
8 protesters arrested in Yau Ma Tei during the height of the social unrest in 2019 have been jailed for up to 57 months. 11 people aged 19 to 28 were arrested at the junction of Waterloo Road and Hamilton Street on November 18, 2019. Hundreds of people were heading to the Polytechnic University at the time in a bid to help protesters escape from a police cordon. District Judge Jackie Ip said their acts challenged the rule of law. 6 defendants who pleaded guilty earlier to rioting were sentenced to 42 months each. 2 others were convicted. One will serve 57 months and the other 54 months. 3 others fled Hong Kong. The city's health chief fears there could be a rise in smoking when the mask mandate is lifted. On the other hand, Lo Chong-mao said the increase in the tobacco tax may encourage smokers to step out the habit. Macy Mock reports.
Hong Kong's smoking prevalence rate is 9.5%, which Health Secretary Lo Chong-mao described as low. But he worried of a rebound.
With the removal of the mask, we will anticipate that there may be a possibility of rise of smoking. Over the last 3 years, the mask has helped us not only in controlling the COVID, but also in reducing the number of smoking.
During COVID, some people were fined for taking off their mask while smoking in public. Last year, over 15,000 penalty tickets were issued for violating the mask mandate. It was the highest in 3 years, but it's not known how many of them were smokers. 19 people were prosecuted last year, the highest so far. On Wednesday, the government increased the tobacco tax, raising the price of each cigarette by 60 cents. Lo welcomed the tax increase, noting that a day later, the number of callers to the smoking cessation hotline jumped 5-fold. The government will conduct consultations on more measures in its bid to reduce the smoking prevalence rate to 7.8% by 2025. Lo, meanwhile, said he was shocked by the crash of a surgical light at the United Christian Hospital last Sunday.
And in my own experience as a surgeon for nearly 40 years, I have never seen this. If this contractor, if this manufacturer and the maintenance contractor cannot provide a satisfactory answer to all this and ensure that this will not happen, the hospital authority will have to seriously consider whether to trust this manufacturer and maintenance contractor anymore.
The maintenance contractor has been ordered to submit a report. An expert who investigated the incident said all 6 screws in the light were broken, possibly because of metal fatigue. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Dozens of people remain missing 3 days after a coal mine collapsed in northern China. At least 6 deaths have been confirmed in the incident in Inner Mongolia. Rescuers are racing against time to search for survivors, some of whom were buried 60 meters under the rubble. But there's danger of further landslides in the area. Surveillance equipment have been set up to detect irregular geological activity so people can evacuate in time. Overseas, Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky is hoping to meet President Xi Jinping to discuss Beijing's peace proposals. Speaking to reporters in Kyiv on the first anniversary of the Russian invasion, Zelensky said he thinks a meeting with Xi will benefit world security. The Ukrainian president noted that China respects territorial integrity, which is mentioned in Beijing's 12-point proposal. In a bid to end the bloodshed, China is pushing for a ceasefire and peace talks. Its call was echoed by the United Nations chief.
Over the past year, this Council has held more than 40 debates on Ukraine. The guns are talking now, but in the end, we all know, that the path of diplomacy and accountability is the road to a just and sustainable peace. Peace in line with UN Charter, international law, and yesterday's resolution of the General Assembly. We must prevent further escalation.
U.S. President Joe Biden says there's no evidence that China is sending arms to Russia. Separately, he told ABC News that Ukraine's president will not get the fighter jets that he's been demanding.
We're sending him what our seasoned military thinks he needs now. He needs tanks, he needs artillery, he needs air defense, including another HIMARS. There's things he needs now that we're sending him to put him in a position to be able to make gains this spring and this summer going into the fall.
You don't think he needs F-16s now?
No, he doesn't need F-16s now.
Two brothers have returned to Pakistan after being detained for 20 years in U.S. military prison in Guantanamo Bay. The detention center in Cuba was set up by the Americans in 2002 to hold suspected terrorists following the 9/11 attacks. Hundreds of Muslims were detained, and almost all said they were tortured. Of the nearly 2,000 people sent to Guantanamo, most were released without charge after being subjected to atrocious conditions for years. Abdul and Mohammed Rabbani were reunited with their families today, but 32 people still languish in the prison. Onto the weather now. It will be cold tomorrow morning, but mainly fine and dry later. Temperatures will range between 15 and 20 degrees. Expect similar conditions in the coming days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Cheryl Yuen. Good night.